such as night, how we were taught to fall in love. Oh, in love, in love. Come outside with me, let's get some privacy, who's in control? Oh, I'm losing, feeling kind of reckless, and I don't wanna mess this up. I'll mess it up. I just want your body, I just want your mind expressed to me. I wanna make you happy. I just want your body, I just want your mind explained to me. Hold me, and oh, baby, I've been thinking about you nearly every night this week. And oh, if you like that, I can be a freak for you, for you.
Hey. Una nena como tú, así quería yo, que comiera bien, veo todo recomendó. Se va a poner contento cuando le enseñé la foto. Me dice, me grito loco, pero eres un modo. Y que tú te vas a casa, se ve que arriba en arraso. Quiero llevarte a casa, así de lo guay de la paz. Y parando toda la noche, pero ten cuidado si me tranca. Tu vida no fue moneta vuelta, creo que has vuelto loca, chica, venga. Que me...
Oh, hello, sorry, we're just doing the technicals in the background. Welcome everybody. We're live on LinkedIn, live on the Fanny, Snaith Certified Money Coach Facebook page, and also in my private group, Loving Me, Loving My Money. And welcome to this, the second episode. If you just turn the sound down, Neil, that would be great. To this wonderful second episode of how we talk to our children about money. I started these sessions, lunchtime on LinkedIn, a little while ago. And as a money coach, my big aim is to just sneak that door open to having a conversation about money. I think that everything that we do with money begins with mindset. I don't think that there's actually much point in looking at a spreadsheet or starting to try and manage your money if you don't really want to and you don't feel good about it. So it's about opening our minds to it, thinking about what our mindset is telling us, and actually just eking open that door so that we can start having a conversation about money and making it a little bit more normal. Because let's face it, we carry money around with us 365 days a year. We're spending it while we're asleep, and we have a kind of responsibility to be able to look after ourselves financially. But as parents and adults, we also kind of have a responsibility to talk to our children, or talk to our nephews and nieces, talk to pupils at school, talk to anybody about money. And so this is the subject that we're talking about today, because let's face it, we're not taught about money ourselves. We're sort of expected to be good with it, and yet many of us just aren't. So I reckon let's just chat. And I couldn't be doing it with two better guests than I've got today. You've come back to us. We've got fellow money coach Dennis Harhalakis from Cambridge Money Coaching, and we have fantastic Rainey from Blue Tree Savings, all the way from Vietnam. Amazing. So guys, last week we had a brilliant session with lots of amazing comments, and I'm hoping, just please, anybody with questions, comments, just pop them in the chat box. I've got my trusty helper Neil looking over there, who's hopefully helping me. We will see. And I've got hopefully comments coming up here, so we'll try and answer all of your questions. But first of all, should we just have a quick recap as to what we talked about last week, and then move on to see what wonderful topics we've got to talk about this week? So Dennis, do you want to give us a quick recap of what we were talking about?
Sure. Thank you, Fanny. And I don't know whether you're sneaking the door open, but I think you're throwing it wide open and saying, come on in, let's talk about money. It's fine. It's a safe space. Okay, a couple of takeaways from last week, I thought, were watch your own money behavior. Teaching children about money is not just about financial literacy. We need to make sure that we are sending positive and consistent messages around money. And these are, you can break money down into money acquisition, money use and money management. We need to be positive about all of them. Money's a big thing. The second one for me anyway, one of my big themes is never shut down money conversations. And if you're stuck, you can use the two get out of jail free cards. One is, that's a really interesting question. What made you think about that? Go and get some context and have a little chat. And the other one is, I'm not really sure. Why don't we look it up together? Why don't we go and find out together? One thing that we didn't talk about last week, but struck me afterwards, is that what holds many parents back from talking about their own money and their own money issues are the worries that their kids will go out and tell everybody. So 2 things to bear in mind here. First of all, you can remind them that family money issues are not to be discussed with others. Just don't go too heavy on that point. Otherwise, they could never get financial advisors. And also remember that children don't want to be singled out for being rich or pitied for being poor. So they're unlikely to go around discussing family finances. They'll just keep it amongst yourselves. Will, what did you come up with last week?
Keep chatting for a minute, because I'm noticing that there are people having the usual difficulty of getting in. So I'm just trying to sort them out here. So have a little chat, do the recap for me, please, while I'm just attending to this. You wouldn't mind.
Yep, no problem at all. So one of the bits that I raised last week was trying to make money kind of interesting and engaging for kids. And so the story I shared was with my kids, like in many money books out there, is to get kids to think of money like a seed. Because straight away with seeds, you can give them away, like you can spend your money. But the beauty is with thinking about like seeds, kids will ultimately get that they can plant those seeds. And if they leave those seeds to grow, they'll grow into beautiful flowers or trees. And that's just such an easy way for them to learn that money is not just for spending. It can be for growing. And also with that, it comes on to what I feel is the most powerful skill that you need for children to learn is about patience. They know if they plant a seed, it's not going to just grow automatically overnight. They're going to have to wait. And the longer they wait, especially if it's kind of a tree, it's going to grow and produce more seeds, which you can plant, which would grow into more trees. And it's just a beautiful way for kids to really grasp that money can be used in a different way. It's kind of visual, and it really helps them understand that patience is a key skill when dealing with money. So that was one of the key bits that we talked about last week.
Excellent. Yeah. And all I would like to add really is that my policy is just being honest, really. And, like Dennis, when you say don't tell them, don't talk about other people, but it's a case of saying, look, you can talk, but it's about what we like to share. We're trying to share things to be helpful. We're not trying to share things to be unhelpful. And just about being honest of it. When somebody asked me a question, one of my kids asked me a question about money, I try to give them an honest answer, and I try to do it in a really calm and balanced way. And that takes, as you will know, Dennis, it takes our magician to come forward to be able to not panic, not think, oh my God, I don't know. Oh my goodness, what shouldn't I tell them? It's just having that balanced approach where you can share stuff with them. So that was one of my things. And also I learned so much from the questions that kids have asked me in the past. So that was the other thing I wanted to say. I think that some people are having difficulty to getting in. I'm just going to ask them to come out of LinkedIn and come back in again, because it's like they're all saying, well, we want to get in, we want to get in. They're all fighting to try and get in, and I want to try and help them as much as possible. Come out of LinkedIn and try going in again. I don't know what else. Yeah, it's not easy, this.
It's a LinkedIn thing. It's really painful. Sorry about that.
It is. But it's definitely there. I can see the link sitting there. I can see the notification come up. Neil's over here logged in as somebody else, and it's coming through quite clearly for them. So I think we just need to push on, really. And hopefully if they don't get in, they'll catch it on catch up replay. Okay, so today, what are we talking about today? Oh, first of all, we had a question from Regina, which we want to make sure that we pick up. Regina asked us on the last session, my son borrowed some money to top up for something he wanted to buy. He's 13. What can I suggest to him to earn extra money to pay me back? We're going to talk about that because we are actually talking about pocket money, allowances, and all that kind of stuff. And so this is one of the first topics that they're talking about. So first topic we're going to bring up is, why is an allowance so important? Why is pocket money so important? And I'm guessing we're going to go to Will with this first of all, but is pocket money and allowance the same thing?
So for the purpose of this, then yes, we're going to say that pocket money and allowance, I know in other countries they just use allowance, in some countries it's just pocket money. So for the purpose, we'll probably interchange, but we'll call it pocket money. And it's the same as what we'll refer to as allowance as well. But yeah, no, I think it's a great topic because for me personally, I think that pocket money is the most powerful financial education tool there is for children.
Okay.
And I just believe that because there's this fantastic research done that shows a lot about that our habits drive our savings habits and our future financial well-being. So if you have a habit of just saving a little bit of money and you have that for a long time, you're more likely just going to be saving and saving. You're going to avoid debt because you'll have savings. And it's just what you do. You just save a little bit of money, and that can avoid so many pains. And actually, we pick up these habits from a surprisingly young age. So actually, research has shown from an age of 7, our children could have picked up many of the sort of money habits. And this was done by Cambridge University and what was the predecessor to the Money and Pension Service. So it's really powerful. And most parents probably just don't think about that. They probably don't think that habits or money is in their lives at 7 years old. But actually, if you think about it, it's kind of every time that they get some money from a young age, we probably just expect them to spend it because they don't get that much money very often. They get excited about buying some toys, and it's only a little bit of money. It's not big amounts for us. But in their minds, it's like every time they get some money, they go and spend it. And they do that every time they get some money, and it goes out and it can be spent. And that could just form a sort of habit in their minds, which can get stronger and stronger and stronger as they get older and older and older. And we know that habits are hard to change. And this is why giving kids some pocket money allows parents to help that kids make decisions regularly and help the parents, help them form some good habits from a young age. So maybe go and spend some, but don't spend it all. Maybe save just a bit. Just put a little bit aside, even if it's only a small bit. And if they do that every time they get a little bit of pocket money, that's just going to be what they do. And when they're older, it's just, why do you save? Well, that's what I've been doing for all my life. And it kind of builds up and they'll have that habit. And to form habits, you need to have practice. And that's where pocket money is just such a powerful tool. So when I'm speaking to parents, the general question is, what age should we be giving our kids pocket money? And I'm always like, well, pretty much as young as possible, but probably from about 4 years old, just giving them some pocket money, just so they can start making those decisions. And with the parents' help, saying one of those decisions can be to save, can just get that in their minds from a young age. And that's just what they do. And that's what I've been doing with my girls, just trying to encourage them to form sort of nice little habits from a young age. Not trying to enforce it, but trying to encourage over that. So I just think it's just a wonderful tool to do that. Whereas if they only get money on like birthdays and Christmas, it might be a bigger amount, but they're not getting that opportunity to learn.
And would you say that if they're getting money for birthday and Christmas, would you still say put some money aside for savings?
Yeah, I'd almost just say pretty much every time you get some money, just try and have that habit of saving a little bit. And again, it just needs to be that little bit. Because most people have this, savings boring, spending's fun. But it doesn't have to be that binary. It just has to be, just save a little bit.
Well, if you save, then if you think spending is fun, then the more you save, the more you can spend, right? Eventually, yeah. Well, the other one is, what you want to buy, say you have £100 or £10, you can generally buy most things, even if you spend 90%. that little 10% at the end probably doesn't make the difference between having everything that you want and having zero. And therefore, just trying to really encourage that with children. Say, look, just a little bit. And it's not the amount. And some parents will be like, well, it might only be 20p. What's the point?
but it's not the amount, it's the habit. And that's the key piece that they can really pick up really early on. And I think that's just such a wonderful kind of habit to be picking up from such a young age.
What do you think, Dennis?
Well, yeah, Will's absolutely right. And neurologically, we don't learn in the same way from description as we do from experience. So if we think back to the things that we learned in childhood, not necessarily about money, they all come from experience. You can't teach someone to ride a bicycle by telling them about momentum. It doesn't work. You've got to get on it and give it a go. So the idea with pocket money allowances is that you're getting children giving them children an opportunity to practice spending, saving, and taking responsibility for their actions. And that's really important. You can't teach that to an 18-year-old in the 3 months before they go to university.
No,
it doesn't work. So understanding that at a young age is profoundly important, as Will said, to build lifelong habits. But it's also a question of practicing to make around spending decisions. So if you take all your money and you spend it, then you won't have anything for next week, and there's a lesson in there for that. And it's better to find that out when you're 7 or 10 or 9 or even 14 than it is when you're 19 or 25. And it also so it happens at an age where mistakes will happen, and they're never going to be disastrous. It's not going to be a problem. And you can, as a parent, you can help them understand. You can turn those mistakes into positive learning experiences. You can help them understand about which decisions worked well for them and which decisions didn't work well for them.
Yeah.
And so all of this thing is about practicing at a young age. And there's a large number of people, 30 or 40% in this country, that don't give their children any pocket money or allowances. And they go, well, if you need some money, come and ask. But that doesn't give them the chance to practice how to make sensible spending decisions, and it doesn't give them the chance to practice the saving habit. The saving habit is essentially delayed spending, but also the saving habit is the key to building wealth and financial independence.
Yeah.
So you can think of pocket money as something you give like a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, and an allowance becomes something that you might morph towards when you've got older children, and essentially you're transferring spending decisions to them. So here is, we can go into the maths a little bit later, but here is £5 a week. I'm not buying you any more sweets. You can make your own decisions around sweets, and they can work with that and practice that. And you build that up over time. So they learn to understand around.
Can I put my take on it? Because it's interesting, because I've got 2 daughters, as I think I keep banging on about, and I have to say I don't remember giving them pocket money. Neil, do you remember giving them pocket money? I mean, we gave them money, but the thing is, they both got jobs really early, delivering newspapers or doing whatever. And I think that from the minute that they started working and they were paid by direct debit into my bank account, what I did is I set up an Excel spreadsheet, which, looking back on it now, could have possibly gone horribly wrong. But I set up an Excel spreadsheet with some formulas in there, where Ren's money from the paper round would just go in, and we'd have 5 pots. So we had necessities, fun, long-term savings for spending, giving, and financial freedom account. And I explained to her at that point that what we would do is we would divide her money up into percentages that suited her. So that was a good way of like slicing pizzas into different slices. And she had 5% into giving. She was only putting 5% into her financial freedom account. She was a little bit wary of that, because I told her that she was never ever going to spend it. And she was like horrified at that. And I said, and that's when I brought up the thing, well, imagine it's a bit like Jack and the Beanstalk. This is your golden goose, right? We're going to fatten up the golden goose so that it starts laying golden eggs. And we just start small, and we start for as long a period of time as possible, so that we can just start to grow. So she sort of got that. And then the long-term saving for spending was for, I want to buy something bigger. And then the fun, we said, you just go and spend that, and you can have that money whenever you want it, and you can have the necessities money whenever you want it. But understand that you are now sort of responsible for that part of your life. it took a while to get in, but the beauty of it has been that now that they both have Starling bank accounts, they are using the pots, the spaces that are offered by those challenger banks massively.
Cool.
And it's been completely natural to them. So it's an interesting one. And anyway, that's how we did it with ours, and I think it's working okay. And as soon as Connie got her apprenticeship, I expected her to start paying rent that I then put away for when she left home eventually. Save up, do we call it a bottom drawer? I think we call it a bottom drawer. Women know about that. It's called the bottom drawer, where they used to put in things like toasters and plates for when you eventually went to live with your to-be husband. Very old-fashioned. Anyway, let's move on. So interesting. Let's have a look at the comments. We have got Simon Jones. Oh, thanks for coming back, Simon. Simon, he says, when you make the decision on behalf of your children, and I know, Will, you can answer this, on behalf of your children to put money away, e.g. Will's godson, how do you show them? Save and tell?
Yeah, no, exactly. So for my kids, and I kind of mentioned this last time, from a young age, we sort of said, well, where do you want to put your money? A bit like the 5 pots that you had mentioned there, Fanny, but slightly different. But we have 3 pots, and we kind of labeled them because they were young. So they had seeds, which is money for them to go and spend now, flowers, which is money they want to spend on a toy or something they're saving up for, because a flower grows a bit quicker, but it doesn't last forever. And then you got these blue trees, which is their long-term savings. So for them, they kind of thought about it in how many flowers do I have, because they were so young. And they know that one flower is broadly £1, but for the blue trees, they're bigger. So it took a lot more money. So they're like, oh, how many blue trees do I have? And it just, because in their mind, they want to have this kind of forest growing, because I've kind of ingrained that into them, that's where Mommy and Daddy can spend so much time with them, is that we've built up this kind of forest, and it's producing seeds, which allows us to be in Vietnam and spend so much time. So we use these kind of analogies, and it's just a nice way of not getting into you have £10 or £12.50 or whatever it is. It's more, this is the number, and they know, okay, to get to the toy that they want, they need to get 10 flowers. How many flowers do I have? How old are your
children? How old are they now?
They're now 6 and 8. So, and it's
they're pretty little, right?
So we've been doing that since they've been about 4 years old. So it's kind of their terminology now. But it just makes it nice and easy for them to engage with it, and it's a nicer language than this pot is for your thing you want to go and spend on, or this is your long-term savings and it's X number. It just makes it a little bit more engaging. But I definitely recommend that even if you don't use those analogies, just telling your kids about that money over time is just powerful.
Yeah,
it just shows them that, all right, it's always there. It's going up and down over time.
And when do you introduce the stock market? I know this is off piste really, but I was just one really quick question. When do you do the stock market?
Yeah, so we did. So we started saving in the stock market from a young age, and it was 7. My eldest daughter was 7 when I started to talk to her about the stock market, and she was then 5-year-old, was still in the room at the time, but my 7-year-old loved it and got it and understood it, because I did a nice little using McDonald's. Sort of said, we're in McDonald's. But you see all those people there buying their burgers, some of that money's going to you because you own some McDonald's, and that's investing.
Nice.
And so she was like, what, that person, what about, do we own this tray? Do we own the bin? And it's not just this one, we own them all.
That's
and it's not McDonald's. We
lovely.
own companies because we're in an index kind of fund. And she kind of went and did a show and tell with her class all about it. I was like, wow.
And that takes us really nicely into our next topic, which is, financial literacy basics.
Okay.
Isn't it really? So who wants to start? Literacy basics.
Well, we've probably got people with children from like very young age to 18. So we're going to try and cover as many things as possible. But if you've got a specific question, please pop it in there. And Regina, we will come back to you.
Yes, I'm sorry. We could have done that.
One of the ways to start with this, is we start with the Halifax's pocket money survey. The 2021 isn't out yet. I don't know why. I could only find the 2019 survey. So the average amount that children are given between the ages of 8 and 15 in the UK is £7.71 a week. 25% of parents think they give too much, and 43% of kids think they don't give enough. So
wow, that's really interesting.
there you go. You can look all this stuff up. There's quite a lot of surveys on pocket money, and they vary, but essentially what we're talking about here is calculating an amount of spending decision making that you're going to give to your child. And you're not giving them free money. You're saying to them, these are the spending decisions that you are now going to make. Let's sit and talk about them. What would you like to do? So it's going to vary, obviously. If you've got a 15-year-old, it's different from a 6-year-old, but essentially hand over a little bit of spending power to them. Let them make their decisions. Be open and fair about it, and don't worry. You can make adjustments as you go along. So with my kids, we gave them an allowance for sweets, and we stopped buying sweets. I said,
Yeah.
well, we're going to the cinema. Bring your own money along and make your own choices.
Yeah, I love that, and I think I can totally agree.
It's great. They feel really empowered by that. It's fantastic. So that's a beautiful moment. Anyway, but also they want to show that they can do adult things. They want to show that they can be in charge, and they want to make their own choices. So the thing to remember here is obviously don't start criticizing their choices. If they want to, they want to go the pick and mix, or if they want to go this or wherever they want to go with it, let them go with it, because really there's two things going on. One is you're modeling, or they're finding out about spending decisions, and you're trying to model good behavior around money. So if you freak out when they go and spend all their money on pick and mix, you're just telling them that they can't be trusted, and you're undermining their decision-making processes, which is not great. We do that as parents anyway.
Allowing them to make those mistakes, allowing them to have some regret. I think it's, allowing them to go, actually, if I hadn't bought that, I could have had this. I think you can't, not enable children all the time and actually allow them to fail.
Yeah. Well, that's just on that point. I think that's so important. And it's one of the hardest things to do as a parent is when they make a mistake, you have to let them have that mistake. I think that's just something, especially if you've got siblings where one goes and spends all their money straight away, and then the other one saves it and then buys something nice later, and the other one starts crying because they want it. And you just have to be strong. You have to say, no, you made that decision. I know it's painful, but I know from my own one, you just want to give them the money to stop crying, but you don't. You have to be strong and say, you made that decision. I know it's painful.
Also allow them to have the belief that there is more money coming.
Yeah. We suffer from the urge to protect them. We don't want them to fail. We don't want them to be hurt. We don't want them to be upset. But again, if you look back to your own life lessons, they're all learned in under those circumstances, because neurologically, the emotion attached to those experiences is what the brain understands is important. And one of the other things that people worry about, again, when giving money to their children, is what if they spend it all? Now, if you gave a chocolate to a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old and they ate it all, you go, well, they're just kids, right? So if you give them a couple of quid and they go and spend it all, it's no different from that. It's childhood behavior. So our own issues around money, our own anxiety around money, which is, money's important, you've got to be careful with it. So, well, just let them find that out themselves. Don't pour your own anxieties into your 7-year-old children around them spending money. It doesn't, if a 7-year-old spends all their money, it doesn't turn them into a lifelong spendthrift. It's just not how it works. They're just learning how to use it. And if you model good behavior around it instead of freaking out, and if you show them how to save, and if you show them, and they can then learn about delayed gratification and delayed spending, then that's the lesson they want to take. And you can't do that unless you give them the money to start with, so they can find that out. So we do suffer from this as parents. We go, money's important. Got to be careful. Okay, you know what? That's what the beauty of Blue Trees is it's like it's a bit less tangible. You know, you don't have to pour your own anxieties into it, and we do it. So try and be careful around that.
And I think it's all about those mixed messages as well, because it's like you give them an allowance. My mum used to, well, no, she didn't give me an allowance, but she used to constantly say to me, stop frittering your money away. That was her big thing, right? Stop frittering your money away, buying useless things. And you know, that's exactly what she used to do. Looking back on it now, she always used to at Christmas. We used to buy us all this rubbish that she used to put in our stockings, because she thought it would be nice just to have lots of things to open. But actually, it was sort of crappy things. And both my daughters actually said, I do the same, right? I do the same. I think, oh, it's nice just to have lots of nice things in there. So I go and buy a load of old crappy things and put them in the stocking. But I don't know. I think it's interesting because I think parents give children mixed messages too. Spend, don't spend, save. You've got them, you know, it's all about that kind of balance, isn't it?
Sure. And that's confusing for kids.
So let's move on to some of these things, because I'm just noticing the time and we've got quite a lot of things to cover. So how to calculate an allowance. Have we covered that?
Well, you basically, we're talking about transferring spending on various categories. So if I've got a slide on this, I think I'll have to bring it up next week. So I've got my 17-year-old and my 15-year-old, how we calculated their allowances. But actually, you know what? I can just read it out and we can put it up later on. So for my 14-year-old, we gave him a monthly allowance. That includes £18 that covers 2 cinema trips. £12 was a visit to Nando's. He got £1 a day for sweets and incidentals. That's £20. Add it all up, he got £50 a month.
Okay.
14-year-old, of which £10 was to be transferred to his savings account. He did that. We can go into the mechanism around that. And we also had a long-term savings plan for him that's completely separate to him. So that's one way of doing it. Simply go, okay, you know, what is it you'd like to do? And you can extend this to clothes or whatever you want. Now, that's the basis of that. And you know, he's gone out with his money and he's gone and bought a £40 drone from some nice man in China. You can imagine how fantastic that £40 drone was, but he's learnt a fantastic lesson from it. And that is, don't buy cheap stuff.
That's really interesting.
And so that you know, he went on Amazon or eBay. I don't know exactly where it was. But if I'd said to him, "Don't buy cheap drones," he wouldn't have understood that. Or don't buy a cheap shell suit or whatever one of those things are. So it is important to give them the money to make their own decisions, to learn their own lessons. And so yeah.
That's very organised of you, Dennis. I think I remember just saying you can have £10 a week and don't ask me to buy you anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, the principles around this are being open and fair.
Yeah.
And saying this is about transferring learning opportunities or spending opportunities to you. And let's not be judgmental around it. Which again is hard. So that's one way of looking at it. If people want to send me messages around this, come and talk to me about how you would do that. But essentially, it depends on the age of your child. It's like, how much do I spend on them? So work it out for a month. How much do I spend on them in a month on sweets or crisps or whatever it is? Or over a longer period of time, you can say, okay, well, you're going to buy your own shoes, or you're going to buy your own trainers, or you're going to buy your own sports kit, or you're going to buy your own, makeup or whatever it is you want to transfer to them for spending decisions. Calculate how much it is, be generous, give it to them, and let them go and learn how to manage that.
Okay, so is this a good point to bring up Regina's question?
Well, Regina's question is around chores. So
how was it?
I think we need to talk about the difference between different types of chores and where pocket money fits in. Will, do you want to kick this one off?
I think we're going to have mixed views on this one. I'm really interested for the people that are watching. What are your views on pocket money and giving money for chores before we've even talked about it? It'd be interesting to see what you've got to say. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, so I believe that initially, when giving pocket money, especially from a young age, it should just be kind of given, no kind of links, no behavior, like you're only going to get pocket money if you behave well. You're only going to get pocket money if you do this, that, or the other. Initially, just giving kids some money so they have that decision. They're not making any other decision with their money. Sorry, they're not associating anything else except for I need to make a decision with this money. Because from a young age, if it's dependent, they might. What about if they are behaving badly? They'll have a negative sort of view about money. Oh, I don't like money because I'm associating it with bad behavior. Similarly, if I don't do chores and I get told off for not doing my chores and I don't get money, I feel like I'm being punished, and money's a way of punishing me.
Yeah, so it's really negative that if money becomes a tool of control, then all sorts of problems stem from that.
Yeah, so I think just initially just giving kids those money so they can make decisions, and once you've got feel that they're starting to make some decisions, again, let them make mistakes. And then as they get a bit older, so probably nearer sort of 9 years older onwards, for me anyway, that's when I'd start saying, right now, money doesn't just come for free. You need it. You have to work for it. And this is mummy and daddy work for it in this way and that way. But for you, here's ways in which you can do that, and that's doing some extra kind of work around the house.
Yeah.
So not just making your bed, and I think we agree on this with Dennis,
yes.
but it's more above and beyond. So the other day we have a little motorbike scooter here because that's what everyone drives in Vietnam. And so I was washing that, and my daughter came out and said, "Can I help?" And she did a fantastic job. And I sort of said, "Okay, you can have a little bit of extra pocket money because you did something for us which wasn't expected."
Exactly, I agree.
But then as soon as they get older and older, trying to think about different ways in which they can earn money and trying to put a bit of emphasis on them to come up with it rather than just for us as parents. But I think it's going to be a gradual stage. I don't think it's from day one.
No,
get the kids doing the laundry, but it's as they grow up, understanding that money has to be earned.
So let's bring us on to Regina's question then. My son borrowed money to. Well, let's do this because Regina, she's on with us.
Hi, Regina.
She said, "I don't pay for chores simply because no one pays me." But her question last week was, "My son borrowed some money to top up for something he wanted to buy. He's 13. What can I suggest to him to earn money to pay me back?"
Okay, I just want to give a little bit more context around this, and we will get to this, Regina. So
she's doubting it. She's doubting.
As part of a family, we all have things that we need to do, and those are family chores. So walking the dog, taking the bins out, unstacking the dishwasher, bringing your food, setting the table, all these things are part of being a family. And these are family chores. So everybody's expected to chip in. We have it fairly easily organized. We've got 3 bins. I've got 3 kids. They do 1 each. So, it's not that hard. These are family chores. You don't get paid for doing family chores. They're part of the things that make the family run. And that's how we roll. Now, there's stuff outside of that, which you can consider to be like jobs or non-family chores. And those are things that you would, a little bit larger tasks, a little bit more responsibility, and maybe you get someone else.
Like cleaning the windows or washing the car.
Cleaning the windows, washing the car, mowing the lawn. There are other things that sometimes we pay other people to do.
Redecorating the house.
So redecorating the house. Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's an interesting experiment. Maybe for your 17-year-old, not your 7-year-old. And so under those circumstances, if you're going to pay someone else to do them and your child wants to earn some money, you can hand that over your child. So there's a couple of thoughts around this. One is that when they're learning to do something, they're going to learn at their pace, not your pace. So you need to support them in that process, and try not to be too critical. No one knows how to clean a car when they start, but eventually they'll get the hang of it and they'll get better at it. And so it's okay to pay for jobs. It's not okay to pay for family chores. Those are part of being a family. So I hope that makes that distinction.
Are we going to answer Regina's question yet?
We are going to answer Regina's question. The answer to Regina's question is, why don't you sit down with your child and talk about what he thinks he can contribute, what sort of jobs he would like to do. Now it's winter here. We've got snow on the ground. There are probably not a lot of things outdoors certainly that he could be doing. So I would so maybe, you know, we can do washing the car. We could do hoovering the car. I don't know if there's any leaves left to collect in your area. Maybe there are things that we can talk that he can do in spring. So
I think she's asking about how can he go and get some money from outside of the house. Don't you think?
Well, she's lent. Oh, possibly. Well, 13, you can't do very much in this country. But if there's things that he can do that we would consider to be jobs, then sit down, negotiate a rate, agree what it is. So one of my kids wanted to borrow some money to, I think it was for the drone, actually. I can't remember. And so he borrowed 20 quid. We agreed that he would do garden work at something like 7 quid an hour. We agreed that meant 3 hours work, and we allocated some time and 3 weekends to go and do that time. And so he paid off his debt to me with 3 hours worth of garden work.
All right. Well, hang on a minute. Let's go a bit wild here. Okay. So both my children had jobs when they were 13. Now I understand that we're in lockdown, so it's harder but obviously I would have thought that the obvious things were to suggest babysitting, delivery of those little magazines that you get. You can do that at the age of 13. I've got Tasha Thor Stratton, who's saying our 11-year-old is starting a fidget anxiety tool business. A friend of mine's son, who was on national telly last week, has started during lockdown. This is just beautiful. A storytelling business. So what he does is he goes online every night at 7 o'clock and he reads a book for 20 minutes, half an hour. Families sign up. They pay a monthly fee to him. At the moment, he's giving the money to charity. He's giving it to WaterAid. But, you know, there are to basically encourage entrepreneurial skills at that age, I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think, to be honest, I think there's a myriad of stuff that people can do out there. There's all sorts of things that 13-year-olds can do. I mean, let's face it, they are probably 10 times better than we are at technicals. I remember sitting with the guys, they were a little bit older, on my Young Enterprise course a couple of years ago. Young Enterprise is where you have to create a business within school, create a product, go out there, sell it, etc. And they created this brilliant book. And they were talking about going to craft fairs and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we could go to this school fair, this. And then one of the guys who was the managing director, he was sitting there quietly like this. And he just piped in, he goes, I don't know why we're bothering with all this stuff. Why don't we just drop ship? And I was like this. And he was telling me that at his age, he was 16, he was already buying and selling parts from China via eBay. So
I think I think that's so powerful. I think because we're going to be naturally growing up to learn that time is money, and that's what our jobs, and that's fine. I think we need to learn, our kids need to learn that, but learning that there's these other ways of making money using the entrepreneurial piece, and it's just not taught in schools. And that's right. Therefore, unless someone actively goes and talks to kids about it, and I think we might have mentioned this last time, that they might just have a talent for it. My neighbor, when I lived in Hong Kong, it's like 10-year-old, he had a little lemonade stand. So when we got off the bus to walk up, we were getting bombarded with these kids selling us ice cold lemonade, and he was instigating it. The best bit about him was, I said, "Oh, what are you going to do with that money?" And he says, "I'm going to buy more lemons." And I just went, "Wow." Wow. He actually went across the border from Hong Kong to China and bought the Chinese drones, but sold them for a markup in Hong Kong. And he just loved it. So I think that's a really good way. Another story that I thought was really powerful from a parent was that they actually got their kids to go and find how the parents could save money. So the parents were renewing one of their insurances, and they didn't want to go and sit and go through and find these deals. They got their kids to go and find the deals and said they'll split the difference. Yeah. So it's trying to find these little ways of making money. It could potentially be selling some toys. they might have some books and toys. Why not get them on eBay as a way of getting money back? And there's one of, what was the other one I had? Oh, it's gone.
There's a, well, I heard of a young girl. I think she was about, I mean, she probably wasn't old enough to be selling on eBay. She probably was, hopefully she was doing it through her parents, but she was really into fashion. So she was going on and she was finding high-end fashion being sold secondhand on eBay, her size, kids clothes. And then she was buying that in and then marking it up and selling it on. She was just better at eBay than the person selling it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like Facebook Market has loads of free stuff on there. And people just takes that little bit of time, and kids.
I think the important thing behind it is to actually, I love that excitement. I mean, my daughter, she's a singer-songwriter. She had a music, the track was the one playing at the beginning of this thing. You know, I bought her a busking amp and a microphone. The microphone was for her birthday. The amp wasn't. She paid me back for that. That's her business, right? Yeah. So she needs to pay me back for that amp. That's her, to encourage her to go out and busk. You know, they went out busking one day at not Christmas before last, it was, to be fair, because it was before lockdown. I think they came around with £113 in a day.
Yeah.
Just by going onto Cheltenham High Street and singing songs. And this is exciting. This is really exciting, I think.
Yeah. There's just a there's a company called I think it's called My Pocket Skills, or My Pocket. I'll put up the link when, and that's just for kids to go and start earning money. So they can be, if they're good at art, they set up a little video with if they're 13, they tutor a 6-year-old, or if they're good at music. And it's just a nice way of tutoring and kids earning a little bit of money from a young age. And I think it's just a fantastic, especially in lockdown where parents are desperate for someone to entertain or keep their kids occupied. I
have to mention one thing, right? There's a guy, and I was watching this in a marketing training I went to, and they showed us. There's a guy in Japan. So we haven't even mentioned YouTubers, right? We haven't even mentioned what people do on YouTube in order to earn money. There is a little guy in Japan. I think he's about 12. And all he does is he sits there whilst he's doing his homework and films himself. And sometimes he streams it live. And he has a whole load of subscribers, you know, where people pay money just so that they have somebody to do their homework with.
Fantastic.
Let's go on. I'm noticing the time that it's 1:45 already. I've got one thing here: modeling reflective behavior, purchasing decisions. Do we want to talk about that, Dennis?
I think we need to put that into next week.
Shall we put it into next week?
Along with bank accounts, stored value cards. I just want to tease out something, because it came up for me as we were going along with this, is that when you start with pocket money, and let's say you give your kids £5 to make the maths easier, then in order for them to save, you need to make sure they can. If you give them a £5 note, they can't save £1. So you need to give them 5 £1 coins, and you take the one of them and you put it in the savings pot. The other £4 are for stuff they can spend on. The £1 goes in the saving pot. Now you can have fun with this. You can make saving pots out of jam jars. You can do what we did once, I think, as kids, and take the balloon and make your own piggy bank with papier mâché, and you can have a huge.
Yeah, I love that.
Doing that. Now, piggy banks don't pay interest, so what you need to do is make sure that the money saved is rewarded. You need to go in there, and you can sneak it in as the money elf, or you can be, totally transparent around it and go, okay, if you've saved £10 and then you chip in and I put another £1 in as interest, you need to understand that saving gets rewarded, because that's how they're going to build a secure future for themselves later in life. So make it easier for them to save that £1 or whatever that amount is. Could be 50p, 20p, doesn't really matter. And then reward them for the saving behavior. And then later on, when they have bank accounts, stuff like that, you also need to reward them for the saving behavior. It's got to be worthwhile for them to do that, as opposed to earning 0.1% or whatever derisory amount we get.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point, Dennis. Thank you. Okay, so I can't remember. Simon's put a comment here to split the difference on savings. That's fantastic. I'm not quite sure where that came from, but I'm sure it was brilliant.
That's to do with that saving the money on the insurance is incentivize them to go and help you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Got it. So let's start to think about wrapping up. What have we talked about today? We've talked about pocket money allowance, the importance of not paying chores, encouraging entrepreneurship, paying for chores that you really don't want to do yourself, that are not just regular tasks. That's okay.
Sure.
Rewarding saving. I think that's really important, which is a good point. What else did we say? Is there anything I've missed?
Well, not linking allowances to family chores. Family chores are family chores. Money is money. If you use money to try and manipulate behavior, all sorts of bad things happen after that. So it's very important to separate the two. You're giving money and you're giving an allowance for them to learn to teach themselves financial literacy and to learn about spending decisions, saving decisions, and delayed gratification. Really, really core life skills.
Yeah.
So don't mess with that process just because they didn't make the bed or they didn't tidy their room or all that thing. That's a separate thing to be dealt with. Obviously, if you've said, listen, rake the leaves and they didn't rake the leaves, you don't pay them, but that's a separate, you don't pay for what they didn't do. But don't link allowances to chores. And don't criticize spending decisions. Again, it's hard. We don't want them to waste their money. We don't want them to get ripped off. We don't want them to suffer. But when we get involved in that process, we undermine them and we make them feel like they don't make good decisions themselves, and that's really not helpful.
Will, what have you got? What would you like to reiterate for today?
Yeah, well, I think it's been a really good discussion. I think the big piece is for having conversations with children about money from a young age. It's just pocket money we've talked a lot about, but it's just the tool that allows us to have that conversation. And I now speak to so many parents and pretty much everyone just says, I wish I was taught about money from a young age. And I think this whole conversation is about helping parents have those conversations. Pocket money is a tool to have those conversations. And hopefully we've given you some nice tips on how to do that and the importance of that. But just having those conversations with kids about money from a young age can just have such a big impact, whether it's about them making little mistakes, about starting to form good habits. But one of the big bits we haven't talked about, which is linked, is it just takes that money taboo status away. If we don't talk about money, then it's going to start having a taboo status. But using pocket money and talking to our kids about money from a young age, they won't be scared of money. Hopefully they'll grow up feeling comfortable talking to their parents and others about money, such that if they were to get in any trouble when they're older, they're not going to sit there in silence. And I think that's just so powerful.
I think that's brilliant. I've just got a couple of comments here from Tina Matembe. Hi, Tina. We use a pot system where they spend 70p, save 10p, invest 10p, and give 10p of every pound they earn.
It's beautiful. I love the charity bit. Well done.
And she's also said, I absolutely agree with you, Dennis. We take chores in our house as corporate social responsibility.
Wow, I love that.
And it leads into a good conversation about what that is, which is fantastic. And I'm going to add to that, which is, I think that if you discuss money with your children, if you're able to discuss money with your children and make them feel that they are empowered, like they have some responsibility that they hold as a gift rather than a heavy burden, right? So it's like, gosh, I actually am making my own decisions here. I mean, obviously that doesn't always work if you find the bottle of vodka under the bed, but we don't really want that. It's talking with teenagers, but making their own responsibility, their own choices of how they're spending their money, I think is fantastic, and allowing them to make mistakes, which is, I think, really, really good. And I think the other thing to remember is that if you find it difficult to talk about money yourself as a parent, because let's face it, this is where it starts from, use your children as your educators. Allow them to guide you to the education that you you know that you need, right? So it's like when they're asking you the questions, again, allow yourself to be honest, to say, I don't know, but let's go and find out together, shall we? You know, I mean, I know that obviously I just happened to have this book out, so I was talking about it to a client, but I brought this book out again, the Your Money Matters, which is the Martin Lewis money saving expert book for all secondary school age children, secondary school. And I could probably say that if you are a parent that feels that you could do with some more financial education, or feel that there are bits that you don't know, this book pretty much has everything you could possibly want to know in it, I would say, because it's just got it all: earnings, credit cards, APR.
We should put that on the list. So, Fanny, we're going to finish with our other book recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I will put this on the list, and also, I mean, this is free to download, by the way, from moneysavingexpert.com. This is a 2018 version, but there's a 2021, so you can download a PDF and just have it kicking about on the coffee table if you print it off. Or you can actually buy it. 100 copies of these, by the way, were given to every single secondary school in 2018. Free of charge by Martin Lewis at his own expense. He's a top geezer. Right, let's show this slide, because this is a reading list that we have come up with between us, which we think that you might find interesting. So I'd like to invite you to okay, here we go. I'd like to invite you to take a picture of this so that you have some books to read.
Take a picture or write them down.
Tell us about Happy Ever After, Dennis, because I've never heard of that.
Randy. So Happy Ever After is written by a guy called Michael Gilmore, who's based in Singapore. Michael, for a number of years, has volunteered on Sunday evenings to help people with financial literacy, particularly migrant workers that come to Singapore. He teaches them financial literacy. And this led to something called the $1,000 Journal, which is a budgeting tool. And he's also now written Happy Ever After, which is a book he wrote for his daughter. He's got two daughters, for his daughter, about how to talk to children about money. And it's fantastic. It's just come out in Singapore. It's coming out on February the 18th in the UK. I've seen a PDF copy of it. It's brilliant.
Okay, cool.
It's I wish I'd written, and now I've got to write something even.
Yeah, you've got to write something.
Remotely half as good as that.
Because we're running out of time.
It's a shameless plug, but honestly, and of course the proceeds go to charity. So start with that one.
Will, yours was Save Your Acorns by Rob Gardner.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah, it's just a fantastic little book that is aimed at 4 to 6 year olds, just starting to get those little habits. But I think, as Rob says, when you speak to him, it's also there for the parents as well, as they're reading it to their children. Hopefully, a lot of the lessons are going in to impact not just the kids, but the parents as well. And it's an easy read, and my kids love it, and everyone who I know has read it loves it. So
that's actually like really for children. So that's great. Okay.
That's children,
I've got two books here that I have to say I haven't read it from cover to cover, but I dip into them a lot. And one is the Raising Financially Confident Kids by Mary Hunt, which is great, and The Opposite of Spoiled, which I love. So it's all about talking very much about what we were talking today, the smartest ways for kids to spend, and the chores and allowances and all that kind of stuff. So it's great. Right, guys, in the next session, what are we talking about in the next session? Will, what are we talking about?
So we're going to go a little bit more in depth about some financial topics. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to talk to your kids about debt, how to talk about scams, but also a bit about tax. Just these different topics that parents feel their kids should know, but don't really know where to start and what kind of level to go at. So we're going to share some tips that we've written about or spoke to our children about to make those conversations kind of easy for them.
Excellent. And I think we're going to go back over a bit of the bank accounts and things, are we, Dennis?
Yeah, we'll go into bank accounts, Go Henrys and stored value cards. And please, or if you want a question asked, please reach any of us on LinkedIn or Fanny on Facebook. Pose a question. It's really important for us to answer your questions. We'd love to know what they are. We don't want to guess what they are, and we'll pick them up next week when we do the next session.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next week at 1 o'clock. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.